Welcome to the 8th Black and White podcast. Today is going to be a long one. We're looking at 2 hours because we have a whole bunch to talk about. But first, we will do introductions. I'm Dylan Nelson.
Hi, I'm Ian.
I'm Natalie.
Hey, I'm Jake.
I'm Trevor.
I'm Stuart.
I'm Kyle.
And joining us for the first time on the podcast, we have Chris Paul. Chris, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris Paul. I am 24 years old. That took a little bit. I am currently working as a lumber associate over with Lowe's, and I was born in Pullman, Washington.
Nice. So, today's topic, the reason why it is 2 hours today, is because a couple weeks ago we took part in a 24-hour event, and Black and White and company played as the opposition force to humans who are trying to survive a zombie scenario in the woods for 24 hours. So today is basically going to be story time. Yeah, I guess just story time. Anyone have a story they're dying to tell first?
I fucking flipped meat grinder Michael Chun.
You flipped him?
Yes.
So I'm sitting there in the forest, and I had just died recently, and after dying, I was supposed to sort of sneak away off into the mist, be sort of super ninja, and so I'm sneaking off away, and then up. I'm not sure if I turned the corner or if he came up, but I came face to face with Michael Chun, who has a reputation for being like a hair trigger away from murdering you most foully. I see him. He looks at me. I have two little headlamps on and my face is covered, which both of those are kind of dead giveaways that I'm a shade. He looks at me. He does the hand motions for quiet, one person up ahead of me. And I look confused because at first my thought is, oh shit, Michael. And then he does that and I go, you're supposed to be shooting at me. This is the point in time in which we shoot at each other and then I die and run away and you run away. Instead, I turn on my red light, like on my first red light, and he looks at me kind of confused, goes, same motion, one person, that way. I turn on my other red light, and then level my blaster at him, and it's only until I leveled my blaster at him that he fully realized what the fuck was happening. So he naturally picks up his blaster, fires, I think, one or two shots, and then his blaster jams, and because we're so close, he just lunges at me, closes the distance, and we get into a full-on grapple. Like 10-second grapple. And he's all the while, I have to stay silent because I'm a shade. Meanwhile, he's shouting like, Kevin, come to me! So he's making a lot of noise. At first, my thoughts are, shit, break the grasp, run away. And then a couple seconds later, I'm like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm a shade. So I'd lean in closer and I'd like maneuver myself around so that I actually flip him over my shoulder. He gets laid out. And since I had him flipped, I was able to flip my hands around somehow and grasp his wrists instead of him grabbing mine. I cross his wrists. I say, "You're cuffed. You can only be uncuffed from an engineer." And what I should say is a shade or an engineer. Instead, I said, "Shade or death takes you." At that moment, two people come up and they just sort of like stare dumbly at me looking at Michael Chun. And then I look up, see the two people just sort of like staring at us. And then Michael Chun goes, "Kill him!" And then they shoot me and I die. But I threw him so hard that he actually lost his glasses and we had to call like a pause of gameplay to actually go and find his stuff.
God damn.
It's metal.
I should have started with that. Ian, you want to give the rundown of what the event was?
Yeah, so this is an event that we've done last 3 years, yada yada yada. This year I ran it, so one of the big things we are doing is we have an opposing force other than the zombies. The zombies are there to be sort of annoying, but the opposing force is supposed to be difficult. What we were was a group of silent, elite, faceless crazy people who were just there to kill and or capture the other humans. I guess throughout the game, our mission was, from a game mechanic standpoint, it was a way to cull the humans and to sort of keep their numbers in check, as well as providing that player versus player experience without having them have to kill the other PCs. What it ended up being was taking a shit on all of the players for 18 hours and eventually killing every player in the game.
Which, in our defense, we were instructed to do basically by the end of the game.
This is the first year we've done it. It was an amazing test. All the players said, this was fucking awesome. We never see the color red the same way. You should do it again next year.
It's kind of a high five on our part too. It's the first game that we've ever put in something like this, and the first one that everyone's died, and we have had no negative views of the LARP. So, kind of a bravo on there.
There was some talk of we should have just done the finale earlier, because, well, I don't want to say our final sweep as the Shades, as like a whole group, was overkill, but it was pretty dang close. And I feel like had that been the finale setting, maybe we would have had maybe one survivor or something. I don't know, but or if we'd given them more of a chance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because we pushed our shit in at 7 a.m, which is...
If we wanted to count Kevin, there was someone who was never killed. I mean, he was a...
Same with that guy that Kira sold out.
That poor guy.
Oh, right.
Technically, we never killed him. I just laughed and told him he was the last one alive.
Just laying there. Don't say anything, please.
Scott. His name was Scott.
That's right.
Danny's friend.
So technically, Scott won.
You should toss in the picture of that too.
Shout out to Scott. Yeah, I'll put the picture in right now.
Ripping pasta, Scott.
Ripping pasta.
You were a brave soul.
To your defense as the Rec 7 a.m. Shade crew, from what I hear, apparently a lot more humans would have lasted a lot longer if Daniel Kim hadn't been a bright blue hedgehog in the Cabbage Patch.
I will also put a picture of that in right now. Trevor, you wanna lead that one?
Yeah. So that was kind of a wonderful little moment we had. We had tracked down at least most of this group previously, and then had to break contact due to game rules. And they used that break in contact to escape, at which point we didn't pursue exactly, because I don't think that we were allowed to. I think we had, by rules of engagement, we had to let them leave and then try and find them again.
Yeah.
But we did more or less manage to figure out that they'd gone to the Cabbage Patch, which is this big, I'm sure Dylan will put in some pictures of it, it's this huge, waist to chest deep grass. There's sort of boggy areas in it where you'll sink in up over your boots, and yeah, lots of skunk cabbage. Crazy place to hide, because you can literally, it's grass that tall and that thick, you can just duck down and you disappear. So we had gone out there and we had searched for them, and it wasn't the last place that they could have been. They could have been other places at the LARP, but it was sort of the last one we thought was likely. And we had searched just about everywhere, and we're getting ready to leave. And I went out and let's see here. I'm trying to remember. I went out into the patch, sort of looking around, and saw a head poke up out in the way out, sort of further out than we had searched, because it got wet and gross out there.
So I want to jump in right here and commend you on that, by the way. We had done, not an entire sweep, but we had done a pretty big sweep of that skunk cabbage patch already, in full force, all 10, 11 people we had. And we had not found them because they were way at the edge, so we pulled back and were about to leave the skunk cabbage patch and check it off our list of places to search, when Trevor gets on the radio and said something along the lines of, "Hey, I think I saw something. Did we check there?"
As I recall, I said to Dylan, give me a head count of who we still have in the Cabbage Patch, because I couldn't tell. I just saw a head. I mean, that was all that I got.
Yeah, it was just you at that point.
So I was thinking, well, it's probably just one of us out there that I'm seeing. But then I believe you radioed back, everyone is out of the Cabbage Patch, because it was like just you and Nick on the outskirts at that point or something.
Yeah.
So I sort of started going back out there a bit further, following kind of this crushed down trail of grass, because that's one of the other things about the really tall grass like that, is you can see where people have been. And yeah, sure enough, there was sort of the whole crew of Mavericks and remaining company hiding there. And it was kind of a beautiful little moment, because the first time I saw the guy's head and then he ducked back down and I wasn't sure what had happened. And the second time we made eye contact, which was just, it was beautiful for me, but I'm sure it wasn't for him, because he definitely saw me see him and figure out what was happening. So yeah, that was kind of the Cabbage Patch moment.
Then you called in the cavalry and we wrecked everything.
Yeah, and then we just shot everyone.
We should also take that as a hint that if we're gonna clear something, we should probably stick to it, because we stopped, 80% of the way, or the rest of the 20% we're like, screw it.
What's interesting is that last year Cody and I stomped through where they were hiding, and like 10 feet before that area, it was all bog. So I mistakenly assumed that it was all water this year. Maybe it wasn't, because we got a lot less rainfall.
There was actually quite a bit of water out there still, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were just standing in the water, I think.
Oh shit.
And that was
Dedicated.
part of the reason. I mean, it was a really good hiding place, and it made sense that there wouldn't be people out there, because it was gross. It was just nasty. Not nice water either. I mean, it wasn't just wet, it was actually gross.
They were channeling their inner fugitives.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, just hide somewhere that people looking for you aren't willing to go. There's another tip and trick.
Bring out the canines next time.
Yeah.
We should call you the Fox.
The fox.
The Fox. I'm alright with that as a nickname.
So it just occurred to me, and it's kind of poetic that it's like this, is the player's first and last encounters with the Shades were in the Cabbage Patch.
Yeah, that's right.
That tickles my English major funny bone.
It's poetic.
Yeah, we had a good first encounter in there too. We should
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Stu, you were the one being attacked. You wanna lead that one?
Yeah, so kind of my first role during the LARP as an NPC was I was first being NPC for this organization called the Rangers of Cascadia, and we were basically just helping out the PCs with stuff and giving them missions for the first bit. And so we basically had a mission out in the Cabbage Patch where we were getting set up to get ambushed by the Shades. And so we just basically got decimated. It was supposed to be an easy win for the Shades. And then the humans would come in and rescue the Rangers. Except my player was not so lucky, because he got brutally executed in front of the humans.
With a mag strike.
Yeah, it was really brutal. But it was also a lot of fun, and it kind of showed the PCs just like how brutal these Shades are.
Which one of the Mavericks was it that had a little shield on their arm?
Both the Andersons had one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know which one it was, because I didn't
Glenn.
see any face in the. It was Glenn that had it on his arm.
Well, I mean, they both had shields, but I talked to them, and I was like talking to Alex about it, and he was like, "Oh, that wasn't me." So
Oh, gotcha.
it was
so
Glenn.
So, with that ambush, as people who went, if you listen to this, Shades were hiding in the grass, waiting for cinematic to start. And so the firefight that ensued, I managed to get over that little grassy knoll that the whole thing was on, and down into the backside where the water was, and I snuck around through the water up to the opposite side where the humans came in. And so I'm down there as I hear everyone getting shot around me, trying to control my breathing and not give away where I am. And I kind of look up through the grass, and I see Glenn kind of just standing there looking like over me, because all Shades were camo, relatively woodland colored. So he didn't see me. So I go to stand up and raise my weapon, and I let off 4 shots, which would kill someone if they all hit, and they were all perfectly like dead center, very little spread for a Nerf blaster. and his first instinct was to go like, "Ugh," and like raise his right hand or whichever arm was his shield was on, and somehow he ninja blocked like all 4 shots that I had at him. And then I just ran at him, and then everyone shot me in the face. But that was probably the luckiest thing that I saw that entire night, was just the reflex of cover your face with a shield. And I don't know if that's luck or skill, but bravo, sir.
They've been bopping for like years.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
skill and
Instinct.
probably some degree of luck.
Yeah, actually, that kind of brings up a funny story. So from where I was on the far right flank facing them, so on Stu's like far left flank, and right next to me was Nick, and so him and I were pretty close to the engagement of where all the humans were coming from, and and so we all started attacking, and I had forgotten to bring my melee sword, which I guess is a good thing, because as I'm popping up in and out of these bushes, my blaster jams, I change blasters, and then I look over at Nick, and Nick is looking at me, and he's like mouthing, "We're gonna charge, 1, 2, 3," and he charges ahead into the grass. And for me, I'm like, well, I'm gonna do the closest thing to a charge, so I pop up, and I leave off like 4 or 5 shots, and then I pop back in, and then I hear more rustling than I imagined. And then I hear the word, like, and I hear people shouting as I kind of expect. And then I hear the words, "Get him!" And then I also hear the words, "I have zip cuffs, let's cuff him."
Can I just say real quick, because Nick isn't here to talk or anything, but he is like one of the best LARPers I've ever seen. He is built to LARP.
And so he runs up, he gets cuffed, and they cart him away. And it's only until later that we all look around and go, "Where's Nick?" And then we're trying to talk to Nick, and then we say, "Oh yeah, well, you're a shade. You can't get if you become a prisoner, then you just pretend that you die. So like take a cyanide pill or something like that." And then Nick apparently bites a cyanide pill back at base, and then starts foaming up at the mouth and dies.
That is something I wish we kind of had, is a mechanic for stealing, or not stealing, capturing a shade, having some sort of reward or some kind of interrogating sequence or something. Because I kind of wish I got taken, because we signed up to be a green band, but other than that, we didn't really get taken at all.
I was taken.
Well, yeah, 2 people out of 12.
That.
Yeah, tell us about that there.
Okay, so what happened to me was, oh god, I think it was after I had done the Mr. Jingles mission for people. I think somewhere around there. So it was around that time of the night, around 11:30 or so, getting on midnight, and me and a couple other shades just decided to kind of go out and harass the players a little bit. So we did, and in the little scuffle, I ended up handcuffing Alex, the lucky fucker from earlier in the day. And at this point, I had been kind of aggravated at him because he was really a stickler about game mechanics and shit, like whether or not he could be cuffed while he was downed, or if we had to save him from bleed out and stuff like that. So during my fight with him, one of the bandages that he had on his arm just fell off. So I downed him, and then I went back over to the place where his bandage fell off, and I grabbed it off the ground, and I took it over to him, and I bandaged him up, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm saving your life, but you're coming with me. You're now handcuffed. The only people that can uncuff you are Shades or the engineer. But the engineer's dead, because at this point we had killed the engineer."
Oh, yeah.
At this point in the night. Which is another story entirely. But I was like, the only people that you can be uncuffed by are Shades or an engineer, and the engineer's dead. So I picked him up when we started walking off to base, and when I turned around to walk him off to base, standing in front of us were Eric Hastett and Aaron Shaw. So what I did was I took Alex and I took Alex by the collar, put him in front of me, and put my sword in front of his throat. And And then we got into some sort of discussion about game mechanic shit that distracted me, and Eric Hastet sidestepped and shot me to the point of death. And so I was dead, and then Alex started yelling at him like, "What the fuck? Now nobody's gonna uncuff me. I'm still cuffed. What is this?"
Oh shit!
They got in a shouting match over my dead body about whether or not they should revive me so that Alex could get uncuffed. And so after a while, they decided to hold all my limbs down and kick away all of my weapons, and then bandage me up and rescue me. And
Nice.
so at this point, I kind of RP'd a bloody revive mechanic a little bit, and then they in turn, I guess, just like cuffed me. However that works, I just kind of went with it because it was interesting, and And at this point, I was still unaware of the fact that Shades had cyanide pills, so they kind of hauled me back to where all the humans were stationed up at that point in the night, and they were trying to talk me into releasing Alex, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that because I lost one of my headlamps and my sword. So go find those, and then I will uncuff them, and then you will let me walk out of here. And that whole time, like, Shades were over the radio, and, like, Kira was like, Kyle's been captured, what do? We should go in and rescue him, and blah, blah, blah. And I tried whispering over the radio, like, guys, I'm sorting this out, I got this, everything's fine. But apparently nobody heard. So, in the end, Ian ended up getting captured as well, and I asked him what he was doing there, and he said, saving you, and I was like, alright, whatever. And after about, 10 minutes and 5 zombies, they found my lamp and my sword, and I put everything back together, got uncuffed Alex, and walked away. So that was fun. It was like a little mini mission for the humans that I just kind of pulled out of my ass.
That's awesome.
I was actually watching you almost the entire time. I saw you get down in like your fake revive, so I don't know if that's like creepy or not, but it was well done.
I'm watching you sleep.
I know where you are.
So, my perspective, Kyle, is...
Oh, yes.
I was out shading by myself. I got the radio calls that you had been captured, and we had no way to tell you to take a cyanide pill, or at least we thought. So I was like, alright, you know what? I'm going to go over and just get captured myself and kill Kyle. So I cross the Shade River crossing, and over the next, I think it was probably like 10 minutes, am crawling my way in between the searchlights of the humans up the field, while watching Kira's 3 get mowed the fuck down. I, at that point, am able to, using the zombies that you mentioned in your story, get up to Kira and revive every member of Kira's party. Our original goal was to sneak off to the left up that hill and jump through the blackberry bushes, rescue you in a blaze of glory, or I'll die trying. But instead, while I was laying down in the middle of the field and Kira's team ghosted, Aaron Shaw walks up to me. And at this point, Aaron's a little bit annoyed.
His name is Deathfucker, by the way.
Deathfucker Maximum. Sorry. So Deathfucker Maximum walks up to me and goes, "Are you dead?" And I'm not, so I don't respond. Can I loot you? Bandages, game items, anything? And he's not touching me, so I don't let him loot me. And he's like, alright, I guess this one's dead. And he turns around, so I stand up and slap him in the back a few times with the Board of Education. At which point, I get killed and brought over to Kyle. Once I figure out what Kyle's doing, of course, then there's the issue that I am also now captured, and the humans were smart and RP'd ball gagging me.
Kinky.
Ooh.
Right?
Giggity.
Luckily for me, I am an individual who is able to piss people off well enough that someone shot me in the head after they released Kyle.
Yay!
Mission accomplished.
So basically, I made it all the way from Shade Camp within probably throwing distance of the final defense point that the humans had without being seen. I'm very proud of that.
So, on the note of shit that didn't go as planned, there were a couple ops that I planned for the Shades that did not go at all the way I thought they were going to. The first one was kind of a dusk patrol. We were only going to patrol our side of the river. Ian, that's when you ended up kidnapping somebody and trying to come back across. Were you engaged first in that, or did you engage first?
We were shot first.
Okay, so, and I hope people who went to this event listen to this, because I think this is actually really funny. Those patrols were not at all supposed to be something that attacked humans. And Ian's squad and my squad were both engaged first by humans on that, and which ended up killing Shades, but ended up really hitting the humans really hard as well. So how did you end up getting shot at and then trying to kidnap someone and bring them across the river?
So our goal was the humans had these outposts on our side of the river that would prevent, while they were still up, they would prevent us from crossing the river and attacking the town. So my group was going to make a circuit, kill 2 beacons, and then return to base. I mean, not 2 beacons, but 2 outposts, and then return to base. If we were engaged, we would engage back, but we weren't planning on doing that. It was just a plan to destroy these outposts and get back super quiet. And there was a bridge called the Trevor Bridge. Trevor's Crossing.
Yep.
And we destroyed our first outpost and then cycled around through the maze of blackberry bushes to the outpost by Trevor's Crossing, at which the entirety of the Mavericks and most of Geist was there. And we weren't going to engage. We were going to sit by the outpost and destroy the outpost and then disappear into the shadows and return to base. Instead, I believe it was Eric Hasted who formed a skirmish line and advanced on us and open fired, to which we fought the hell back and ended up murdering and capturing, I believe his name was Jordan.
My squad ended up coming to reinforce you guys, and I don't know if this was the same engagement, but Trevor got the drop on Brennan pretty hard.
That was beautiful. That was definitely teamwork.
And people who know Brennan can tell you in HVZ related stuff, he's not really one to lose his composure, especially in the heat of battle, like surprise-wise. Which is why I was so surprised when a certain noise came out of him when you got the drop on him. Brennan had seen me and had vocalized that he saw me, and so as I snuck back around this little turn in the trail, I passed Trevor, and I said something along the lines to Trevor of, "Hey, Brennan's coming, get ready, he doesn't know you're here." And so as I sneak away, and as Brennan slowly pursues me, I hear Trevor pop up, and memory's kind of blurry, but I think you dumped like a magazine at him.
Yeah, I think that what happened was he saw you, because you two fired back and forth for a little bit, as I recall. And I'm guessing that he assumed you dropped back to reload, and did the natural and usually correct thing of pushing up to kill you while you had an empty blaster. But rather than finding you with an empty alpha, he came around the corner to find that you had retreated further than that, and that I was sitting there with a revved up rapid strike. And yeah, I did empty an 18 mag into him, and there was someone else who came up there too, and I don't know how many of those were hits, but engagements from within 10 feet with rapid fire weapons. It was a surprised sound that Brennan made. I'll leave it at that.
Brennan, if you're listening to this, I hope you know that it made my night once I figured out that we actually got the drop on you. That was we got back to camp and I was like, "Who made that noise? I don't know who that was." And Trevor explained to me that it was Brennan. That was probably the funniest thing I saw all night. And unfortunate on his side too, because like you said, that's the right move. Like if someone falls back to reload, 9 times out of 10,
he made the right choice there.
That was the right choice.
But he just
It was the
did
one
not
time.
have all of the information he needed to make it.
Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to say that was unplanned that went better than I expected?
Destroying the town,
Oh,
or
right.
The Cascadia charge.
or the Cascadia charge.
What was the...
I think destroying the town was rather planned.
So, I didn't think that was going to work. We'll go with the Cascadia one first. I wanted to go shake it up a little bit and just go meet the humans out in the open as not a hostile force. So we went in with white lights instead of red. And for anyone who was at that engagement, we legitimately just wanted to see if you guys would take the deal. And I don't remember who we were trading for. I think we were trading for Brooks.
Yeah,
There
a
was the
little
Brooks.
backstory for this. This is one of the ST's, I think probably more brilliantly planned missions. Was we wanted to give the humans a little morality choice. So earlier in the evening, one of our wonderful STs and the zombie lieutenant, Brooks, came into town as someone who had escaped from the Shades, whose name was Scully, because he had a skull painted on his face. The deal is he would run into town, and about half an hour later, this column would come forward and would give the humans the option to give up Scully, and in return we would give them a very powerful and special item. And they had to choose between the powerful special item or giving up an innocent civilian.
For the people who weren't there that are listening to this, the item was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card where you and anyone around you could straight up walk away from a Shade engagement. You just pull out this card and say what it is, and the Shades stop fighting you.
And
Now,
this is actually what was used in the late game to disengage from us, so people could get to the Cabbage Patch. So yeah.
It definitely worked. So for the people who were there and took fucking 20 goddamn minutes to decide what to do, I just want to tell you guys that there was literally no trickery going on. We would have given you the thing, and we would have walked away with Brooks, and that was it. There wasn't any... I'm trying to remember the arguments that were brought against. There was no fake wild card. There was no... we're going to take Brooks and then shoot you. The plan was literally to just do this and then leave. But the humans decided otherwise, and so after what felt... it's probably not 20 minutes, but what felt like 20 minutes of deliberation... Kevin, who was playing the main human NPC, and who had been talking to me out in the middle of what was essentially no man's land at that point, between the Shade line and the human line, was a look of nervousness and constipation, I guess, is what I can psych it up to on Kevin's part. And he goes,
Probably.
he goes, Dylan, this is going to get awkward. And right then, I knew it was about to happen. And so I'm like, really, Kevin, why is it about to get awkward? And so he whips out his triad and shoots it at me. And I don't know if it was meant to shoot all three at once, but it only shot one. And then he reaches for his... what's the blaster with the punk on the bottom?
Demolisher.
Reaches for his Demolisher and shoots the punk at me. But in his effort to try to do it quickly and move backwards at the same time, he kind of just gently stroked like the firing mechanism on it. So it kind of just came out and like lightly touched me, and then he ran back. And then the coolest thing fucking happened. I turned around to the Shade line and yelled something and turned my red lights on, and then I watched the whole Shade line's headlights go from white to red, and then all the humans' headlights started bouncing towards us, and what followed was basically a red versus white firefight for like 4 minutes, in which I think the engineer was captured. Is that when that happened, Ian?
Yes, that was. That was Stu and I.
Where was he in all of this?
So,
I didn't even see him the whole time.
I had one of Eric's mag strikes as well as the Board of Education for this conflict. And I was, if you remember, on the right side closest to the that little forested area there. So what happened was when you got shot and we red lighted up and charged, I do not know what he was thinking, or if the humans just all of a sudden fell back and Danny's just got bigger balls than most of them. But Danny stepped out in front of the group, and I was engaging someone in front of me and look to my left, and lo and behold, see one of the NPCs. So I dump the entire clip, and I did not miss a single shot with that clip of the mag stripe into Danny's side, and was promptly murdered about 3 feet from him. Which is where you come back in, Dylan.
Yeah, so I think I ran back. I revived a whole bunch of people, but I think I ran back and revived you, or was it somebody else? I think...
You revived me.
Okay. Was Danny near you?
Yes.
Man, I totally didn't see him. I was looking for downed red lights.
Because we had actually pushed the humans back at that point and still had a few members alive that were sort of corralling the humans. And you revived me, and I think, Stu, you were still up. And all we did was run up to Danny and just say, "You're handcuffed, come with us now."
Something that happened that I forgot to mention, and I think, Chris, I think you were involved in that, actually, is that a couple members of Geist did not understand what was happening on the field before it devolved into a shit show. And I think they approached your side, Chris. I was talking to...
I can break that down if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So, I believe it was actually Chris, because when we walked up, most of the humans were sort of in one corner of the field, and we arrayed ourselves in a line, and I believe there was exactly 11 of us at that point, because Dylan went forward.
Yeah.
It was 11. Dylan went forward, and so there was just a straight line of 10 of us, and then we saw some people coming up from behind us from across the field, and we weren't sure what was happening. My assumption was that they were sending people out to get into place to try and hit us from behind when the time came.
Yeah, I was in the same thought. I was the other one that was with you, and that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So we saw this, and it actually worked absolutely beautifully, I thought. Chris and I stepped back and turned around. So we had basically each of us was sort of in the center with 4 people behind us, and just turned around and faced them, and they were coming up to us. We didn't actually realize this at the time, but they didn't understand what was going on. It was Geist, and since we weren't acting aggressively, and we had white headlamps at that point, they thought that we were just a bunch of players hanging out.
Was it that they weren't sure what was going on, or were they just... It sounded like they weren't wanting to, engage, because Geist was kind of iffy when it came to helping out the Mavericks.
So I talked to Rachel afterwards, and she thought that we were all humans because of the white lights, and we all had our backs turned to where they were coming from. So she said she walked up to you guys, and you whip around at the same time, and they see your faces, and then they said they promptly shit themselves and just ran. Did you do anything other than turn around?
Chris, we might have raised weapons, maybe, possibly.
When they started coming up real close, we did... I remember, actually, Chris, you did the one hand on the weapon and one, palm up, hand out raised, "Stop there, motherfuckers." And, and I kind of, did the same thing. So, yeah, they definitely turned around and beat a hasty retreat in the other direction as soon as they realized what was going on. But it was kind of funny to watch that realization, because just a second earlier, I know I had been, and Chris, I'm sure you were too, really concerned about them just sort of coming up and opening up on us at close range with a raider or something.
Oh, yeah, please.
That's what it looked like they were walking up to do.
And so I was sitting there going, okay, there's people out there. And then the moment dropped, everyone shouted Cascadia. And to be quite honest, I wasn't sure if it was because my first reaction was oh my gosh, everyone's engaging hide and strike back guerrilla tactics. Or it could have been me thinking, I'm going to go and attack those people who are behind us. Maybe it makes it both. I admit, I'm kind of cowardly sometimes. And I ran in the other direction from where you guys were. Promptly saw that there's nobody around me. And then came back to join you guys in the actual fight. And then almost shot Kevin in the head.
Yeah, so that didn't go at all as planned in any respect whatsoever. I was kind of hoping that would be a freebie for the humans, but alas, it was not. The other thing that went this time way better than planned was our sabotage of the town. And and it was me and Chris and I
Nick and Kira.
not to toot our own horn, but the Shades had like 4 things going on at once at this time.
Oh, absolutely to toot our own horn. We were awesome.
And the radio chatter was sexy. So my squad was me, Nick, Chris, and Kira Betteridge, and we went through the Shades Crossing, which I'm not going to say where it is in case we use that property again next year. But we went through the river, up the other side, hid in the trees, and then we ended up looping around the entire property to come down behind the human town, and I don't think we were detected the entire time all the way around there, and then we scoot down on our ass in what was pretty much pitch black. I mean, could you see shit in there, Chris? I couldn't see anything. You were leading the way on the way down.
I could see things, but that's just because I'm a lucky guy who can, like, discern some shapes, but a lot of it was a whole shit ton of guesswork.
It was basically, we slid down this really loose terrain at like 1 mile an hour on our asses, inch by inch, and then I went a little too far and ended up nut to butt with Chris, who pointed out that the town was right fucking there and that we had gone around the entire human population. And
like, spitting distance? Please.
Yeah.
I could piss that far.
I was surprised that we made it there because I thought we were going to get detected. So we go out all at once and we kind of just take a knee there and wait by the building to quote-unquote set the charges, whatever. And then we start pulling flags out and destroying the building pretty much. And we're going to go to leave, and we realize that the medical tent is still up. So we go over to the medical tent, and we wait there for 60 seconds, and we take that down. And as we're doing that, humans on the field kind of look over our way, and we hear them talking, and they're like, Shades, and we don't reply, and then they're like, do we have people over there? And 60
There's
seconds
like a big LED flashlight shining on all 4 of us, looking back at it, dead silent, like we had our hands in the cookie jar, we're like almost shitting ourselves.
And so we take that down, and then we go to cross the river crossing that was next to the human HQ, and we had been told earlier of a wall that they built, and I thought it was just some bullshit, like, brush piece of garbage they erected to take cover behind. So when we get over there, there is literally, like, this wicker-woven fence of, like, 3 feet high. You can't kick it over, with sticks pointing out to stab people who are coming across the bridge. It was some, like, medieval defense of the castle shit. So we get over there, there's no one over there, and so we just go ape shit on this wall. Sorry to whoever built that, but it was a lot of fun to tear down and throw in the river. Me and Chris and Nick, after helping ourselves to some nearby supplies, go across the river and look back, and here is little Kira Betteridge in full BDUs, no face, just going ape shit on this fucking wall, like she's ripping shit out of the ground and throwing it into the river. And Chris, I don't know if you thought that was as funny as I did, but from the Shade side, once we got across, the giggles and like urgency of keep going and hurry up, I thought was hilarious.
I was just sitting there going, we're gonna get detected, then we're gonna get shit pushed in, we've got so close.
Chris is going, hurry up, I'm going, get some Kira. Nick is doing both, and then she finally comes across, and as I look back at the starlight coming through the sky across the river, it's just like this scene of destruction and like overturned Tupperware and destroyed walls and shit. And
I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
I thought the zombies destroyed the medical tent.
That was a miscommunication, I think.
So, Natalie, why don't you tell that story, and then I'll tell the mechanical side of it as I was running this.
Okay, my pleasure. So, me and a group of zombies, I think it was Riley and a few other people, we were all hiding, Tara, and we were all hiding and waiting for, Michael and friends who were guarding that thing that you guys fucking destroyed, that, like, bridge, barricade, pretty much. We were waiting for them to, like, making sure that they weren't going to see us spawn out of the bush. And they were out of sight, so we all spawn in, and then I think we see like Hana or something in the tent. Oh, no, wait. They come out first, and they start engaging us, and Michael's screaming like meat grinder. And then one of the ghillie guys, like I was chasing after him, and he was trying to shoot after me or shoot at me. It was dark, a bunch of shit was going on. I started hitting him, and he was backtracking, and he backtracked into the medical tent and fucking knocked the whole structure over. Now it's a rickety ass piece of like PVC pipe and like a tarp or something, but like, so I guess it got knocked over pretty easily, or it could get knocked over pretty easily, but a human knocked it over and destroyed it, trying to get away from a zombie, me. I fucking fall on the floor dying laughing because it just looked so funny, this like blob of forested looking stuff just like knocking over the humans hard fought medical tent, and I don't know, it was just insanely hilarious to me.
I'm glad you brought that up because we were a little confused when we went over there. I hadn't seen the medical tent since that happened, and so when we got over there, it looked like several people sat on it at once, but the little flags were still on the ground that denoted that it was a live building. So we kind of just crouched around a pooped-on medical tent and pulled out the flags and ran away. And the flag pulling that I mentioned is our mechanic to denote whether buildings were alive or not. Because unfortunately we're not allowed to use thunder bees or any kind of explosive things to actually blow shit up. That's just how we did it. So meanwhile, while we're sneaking around in the dark, pulling shit out of the ground and throwing in the river, I think Ian, you were up to something, and Kyle, you were doing a Jingles mission as well, weren't you? Was that at the same time?
So we had, at the same time, we had captured, I believe it was Kevin who we had captured, and we're going to get back out.
Right.
So there was the Mr. Jingles mission, which, honestly, we should probably tell the story of.
That was hilarious.
But there was the Mr. Jingles mission, which I believe was Kyle, myself, and Jake.
Me.
Were you the other? Oh, no, it was Stu.
It was me.
It was Stu.
We went out on the Mr. Jingles mission, and then, like, partway through that, I believe the second group, which is the one you just heard from, headed out. And then we came back from Mr. Jingles and headed out on second mission, which was basically guarding Kevin as the humans went and looked for him. And I know, Ian, you were running back and forth between those to some extent, because I know that you started off as one and then showed up at the returning Kevin mission, and I don't know what you were doing.
So, actually, you have your timeline a little bit off, because I remember why I originally went out by myself. I went out by myself, one, to rescue Kyle, two, I was creating the distraction on the field so the assault group could get down without getting noticed and assault the town. So when I created the distraction and got captured next to Kyle, and Kyle left and I was still kneeling on the field in pitch black, I was right there when they started shining flashlights at the town, being like, what the fuck is going on? If I'm correct in that. I might be wrong, but we did have like 5 shade things going on at once.
Kyle, you should definitely tell your Jingles mission story, but before we get to that, Stu, do you want to break down how we ended up actually capturing Kevin on accident? I think that was you that he ran into.
Yeah, I remember that. It was really interesting because, first off, as Shades, we were actually having a tricky time at first getting to the humans' main base because they had all of the bridges down really well down. But we knew of a secret way, which was Trevor's Crossing, which involved going through like ankle-deep water. And then we would end up in these bushes that would make it really hard for people to see us. And so Yeah, we were just going on patrol essentially, and we went through there. And then we were kind of just like trying to scare the humans a little bit, and then run into the grove, and then just headed back. And as we were running to the grove, we passed by Kevin, who was kind of just walking around for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. But from his story, he first thought that we were humans because we didn't have our headlamps on at the time because we were stealthing. So he was coming up to see, what we were doing, and then he found out his mistake. And then right when he turned around, he saw zombies coming towards him, and so he kind of like decided, well, which one's better, shades or zombies? He decided us. That's how we captured him.
So we're laying in the fucking glade under these trees, hiding in the shadows basically, and I'm at the front of this glade, and Stu, I think you were towards the back of it. You were not near me.
Yeah.
And I hear you get on the radio.
We spread out.
Yeah, we were pretty spread out. I hear you get on the radio, and you're like, "Hey, we have Kevin," and I was like, what? Like, no, you're right over there. What do you mean you have Kevin? I haven't seen Kevin. I ran right by him. I thought he was dead. I was like, we haven't seen Kevin this whole time. And it took me a second to realize, after you explained it, that Kevin literally walked into us.
He literally walked into us.
Please don't kill me. And then I guess we just took him back to base and he was a prisoner.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty derpy way to kidnap somebody.
It was very derpy. It was hilarious. But anyways, yeah, then we used them as a hostage, essentially, for a later mission for the humans to have to rescue them. And that is when Trevor, Kyle, and I laid down a really... I mean...
We had a good ambush setup there.
It was a good ambush setup. The humans they should have been able to rescue Kevin, because there were 10 of us. But essentially, the downfall was that Geist betrayed the Mavericks, so they were only half numbers, and that's how we were able to defeat them.
Thank God, too, because we needed somebody to actually start moving things along other than us.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, if that's the instance we're talking about, Stu, we had a pretty hardcore good drop on him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that was another time when it was just a great moment of getting the drop on people, because we were all set up in brush there, and it was dark to the point where they couldn't see us. I mean,
I couldn't see you. I was 2 inches from you.
Yeah, we actually talked about this. Kevin commented it was really funny watching us set up for this ambush, because I set up like on one side of the trail, sort of back in the bushes behind a little tree, and I see Kyle like kind of edge into the brush on the other side, and then a little bit of time goes by, and I sort of whisper over to Kyle, "Hey, Kyle, can you see me where I'm at?" And Kyle says, "I don't know, can you wave?" so I start like waving my arms around, and Kyle says, "No, I can't see you. Can you see me?" And then he does the same thing, and we were not more than like 7 feet from each other. And completely invisible. I could not see a bit of him, and I would think that I have pretty good night vision as far as those things go. He was just as close to me, had no sight on me.
See, I was a little late to that ambush too, because Trevor and Kyle were already set up, and I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I already knew the location, I had no idea where you guys were at, so I kind of just like posted up in a spot. I'm like, all right, that seems good.
Yeah, and it was actually, you were about 2 feet behind me. I don't know if that...
Yeah, I was right where the entrance was, so essentially they went in at the, what do we call it, the papaya event or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Rest in fucking pieces.
Didn't they try to do kiwi this year or something?
I don't know. There's a lot of fruits this game.
There were a lot of fruits
Stu.
this game.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, I mean, they were pretty cautious getting over to the place, because I saw them actually enter like that surrounding area, and they did a full loop around the papaya site, and I was watching them the entire time, and they could not see me, and I had just beautiful view on them. It wasn't until they actually spotted. Was it you, Trevor?
It was. I was the first one spotted, and it was funny too, because there was this whole thing of, because I had perfect beat. I think it was Glenn. It could have. I don't honestly know who it was, but I think it was Glenn early on, and didn't shoot him because I thought it might have been one of us because it was. I mean, it was dark to the point that it was only silhouettes that we could go on. One of the Ander Bros came through, did spot me. We opened up on each other at about the same time. There was some debate over who got shot how much because it was dark and point blank and panicked. And then I just hear this scream of "Allahu Akbar" and just get hit with a body from just completely off of where I could see to the right.
Is that Alex?
Oh, okay, I'm dead. I'm
No,
dead.
that was
I didn't
Michael.
get out of the way
was
of that.
definitely Michael.
Oh, Michael, that's right.
Yeah, it was. It was Michael. And apparently that was heard clearly from the main field, which was quite a ways off.
We heard that. We're trying to be quiet in the town while we're taking down the buildings, and there's 4 like shades in the dark holding this building, waiting for it to be destroyed. And just out of nowhere, off in the distance, you hear Allahu Akbar, and it's like, what the fuck was that? Like we're trying to be quiet while someone's exploding themselves in the cabbage patch or something. Whoever that was yelled that extremely loud.
That
It-
was definitely Michael Chung. He
It
charged
was.
in, and then I turned on my lights
Meat
and hopped out of
grinder.
the bushes and beat his ass.
Yeah, so that was the sound of me dying from the other side of the field.
Good to know.
Yeah.
The
That was a lot of fun.
the Shades had their jump scare game down pretty well, didn't we?
We really did. We had some definite moments of hair-inducing.
There wasn't even anything we had to do. All we had to do was just walk out with 2 lights on and just a single shade by themselves, and they'd start running and screaming.
I have you know, I had one light. I was a Cyclops, and so was Ian.
Yes, I was.
So if you've watched the rest of these podcasts, or if you know Black and White in real life, you know that Black and White members are not really prone to working in larger groups with other teams. So I had my reservations about having the Shades be a multi-team outfit. But Jake is from Geist, Kira is from Geist, Chris is from Umbrella, and the rest were Black and White. And so I know I said this already to you guys, but for the record, I was massively impressed with how well the Shades work together as Shade lead. There are a whole bunch of times when I'm not sneaky, and I had me and 3 other people hide in the grass as someone walked by us so close we could tie their shoelaces together. And that's impressive, I think, to do in an environment where you can't really see where you're going or where you're hiding. And we got so good at doing this that somehow the entire Shade Force, after Kevin got captured, the entire Shade Force left that little glade of trees, and Nick and I think Chris go to turn around to tell us we
me
should
and
leave,
Nick, the ones without radios.
and everyone's gone. How did that happen, Chris?
So I'm sitting there in the glade, and I'm sitting there going, okay, so what the fuck is happening? And I have like a general idea where everybody is, and I sit there and I'm like, okay, and I see a scuffling, and it looks like some people got. To me, it was like, oh, some people got engaged with Shades, and they engaged them, and so I was like, they have it handled. I'm gonna go back to what I'm doing, and then there was nothing. That scuffle was actually all of the Shades running for it, except for me and Nick, because we didn't have radios. So I slide up. I come up to Nick, and I'm like, "Hey, Nick, what's going on?" He's like, "I don't know. I don't have a radio." And so we're sitting there for a while, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna turn on my radio, and I'm gonna risk making noise." And I turn on my radio, and I'm like, "Delta, this is Falcon. What's going on?" We're back at base. All right, we're at the glade. What do you want us to do? Return to base. And then we did.
You got back and you're like, what the fuck happened? When did everybody leave?
Yeah, neither of us had any clue that you guys had fucked off.
The last note I have on the topic of sneakiness is when we went out to get to that glade for the first time in the dark, we had reports that people had Trevor's Crossing locked down. Whoever built that bridge of fuck you or the wall of fuck you had the human bridge locked down. The middle bridge fell down and washed away. So there was this place that we all called the Shades Crossing, and we went through there at like, I don't know when the first time was. It was very dark at that time. So
The first time was when we were going to trade the wild card.
oh right.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
So I'm on point. I hop down into the river. It's ankle calf deep, no big deal. And I start kind of slowly wading across. Fortunately, it was kind of shallow, so there was a whole bunch of water noise already of water going over rocks, so we didn't really have to worry about being quiet. And I get 3/4 of the way across, and I turn around, and please, if some engineer hears this, make a camera that can see what the eye sees in darkness, because I want a picture of what I saw. It was the coolest shit. I turn around, I see what was 10 people behind me at that time, slowly moving across this river, weapons slung low in hands, no faces, no features, no lights, no nothing, and it was all, you couldn't hear it over the noise of the river, and it was the coolest shit I have ever seen, and I kind of pooed a little on the inside because it was so cool what I was looking at, and then I got a grip and went up on the other bank. But that Shades Crossing was super nifty, and I apologize to you guys. I'm not gonna lie, a couple times we went through there, it was just because it was really cool, not because we actually had to. So I hope your feet didn't get too wet.
It was worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
That was so freaking worth it.
And what was cool was that we didn't talk about any of this on the way down. So I hop down, go across, get up on the other side. Chris, I think you gave me a boost up. And then I turn around and start pulling people up one by one. And it was all super silent, which in that terrain can be kind of difficult sometimes. And then I pull up whoever was last, and I turn around, and I kind of move up to the group. And now it's like a silent shade puddle, like on the other side of the river. And then we
quietly dripping.
And then we form up and move out. That was my favorite moment of the entire event, was just silently crossing the river. And then we showed up on the field, and the humans are like, how the fuck did they get over there? Because they're watching both
No
bridges.
one knew.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's actually another thing, sort of going back to what we were saying earlier with the Cabbage Patch, the just being willing to go out and go through the places that are kind of crappy, because yeah, I mean, we did get our feet wet, and granted that would have been more unpleasant for the humans because we got our feet wet and then got to go back to zombie camp and change our shoes.
Right.
But yeah, just by doing that, the humans were the entire time just thinking, how on earth are they getting over here? I heard that from multiple people who played human. They had no idea how we were getting back and forth, because they did. They had all the crossings locked down really well. We just weren't using any of them.
Didn't they start blaming other teams on other human squads for failing and letting them over?
That's
They
what's
started
beautiful.
blaming Geist.
They started blaming each other, and that was our hope. We were hoping to get some contention between the teams, and I guess just being operator in the
us.
dark was enough to do it.
Being able to being able to walk through water is enough, I suppose.
Geist was getting blamed for everything.
To be fair, Geist was responsible for a fair bit of it.
They didn't
but
exactly invalidate any of that.
True, that's kind of what they wanted to happen, though.
Besides Rachel.
Besides Rachel, who was hunted down and trapped on the river the next morning, which was actually really sad.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I was the one that killed her.
Jake and I, yeah.
Oh man, I wish Nick was here to tell that story. So we're looking for people at the end of the day, and this is Nick's rendition of it to me. He said that he went up through the bushes towards this river and kind of looked right, didn't see anyone, and looked left, and just immediately looked straight at Rachel, who was surrounded by whoever she was with. And Rachel just kind of looks at her and is like, or looks at him and is like, "Oh God, what do we do?" Because everyone else was just waking up, and she said that Nick kind of smiled and waved at her, and then went back the other way. And then whoever was with her said, "That was weird."
It was Kevin.
It was Kevin. That was weird. Do we need to? Does that mean we're okay? He waved at us. Does that mean he's not hostile? And Rachel apparently told him, "No, that means he's going to get his friends. We need to go now." And she was right, because all the shades came stomping through the bushes. And to show the terror, I'll put a picture in here right now of Nick's setup. It was kind of terrifying.
He was probably the most inhuman looking of all of us, and we were
yeah.
Kinda
Award
scary
for
looking
most
bunch.
intimidating shade.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was
And
like a bald-faced predator.
yeah.
So one of Umbrella's team members, Ian Carpenter, was attending this LARP, and he was attending it role playing as a journalist, and he wanted to be specific. This journalist had no weapons. The only weapon he had was like one of those short little Nerf daggers, and he had that hidden on his face only for emergencies. And this guy, like, I'm going to toot Umbrella's horn here for a little bit. Ian not only managed to get a few pictures of Zombie HQ without anybody knowing, but on top of that, lasted longer than a whole bunch of people who were armed way the heck more heavily.
That was fucking impressive.
Yeah, like
Ian did work.
It got so funny. Like while we were searching the cabbage patch, I found out where he had camped out at night because I'm wandering around, and I didn't find this out until later. But I'm wandering around, and I see this big circle clearing with this pile of like candy corn in the corner, and I could like it still sticks in my head. Like I just can't get it out of it. I'm like, why the fuck is this candy corn here? I told Ian about it, and he goes, "Oh, you found my hiding spot. I'm sad. I spilled all the candy corn."
Shout out to Ian for pooping in Cabbage Patch.
Go, way to go, Ian. I don't. If that's his poops,
Combat
tasty
done.
poops.
We heard that he pooped out there, and then we were all worried about going out there and stepping in poop.
Yep.
That's right.
Main
Ian
deterrent.
poo.
Yeah.
So, I had decided this was, I don't know, it was getting on in the afternoon. It was getting, or actually specifically, it was sort of in the last warm part of the afternoon, which is why I decided to do it. And we had used the Shades Crossing at some point for something. I don't recall what. I might have just used it myself as a zombie. But the practical upshot is I had already gotten my feet wet. And at this point, once you're wet, you're just kind of wet. You don't get more wet, it doesn't get worse. It's just you're wet, and that's how it is. So I decided, all right, well, I'm going to go and be a river zombie and actually be in the river, because people don't expect that, and it's entertaining to watch, generally. So I derped my way about halfway down the river doing, just terrible derpy zombie roleplay, flailing about, making huge amounts of noise, and then got out, and I had climbed up to this point. There was a bridge there. That bridge had gotten washed out. There was one just downstream, but it was sort of like this convenient little overlook, about a 5-foot bank up the river. And a lot of zombies had been kind of wandering to there because there was a trail, and then just kind of standing there and groaning at the humans on the other bank, not wanting to cross. And a lot of the zombies in general had been really reluctant to cross because you couldn't do it very easily without in a good roleplay fashion, because you had to reach up and grab onto a rope, which zombies wouldn't do. And so I was hanging out on this little embankment, and I see on the other side, Rob was the main one, but I believe Rachel and Austin were over there as well. And I believe ASCII as well. And they were looking at me, and I was kind of, looking back at them, making zombie noises. And Rob says, "Oh, we've got a zombie over on the other bank." And Rachel says, "Well, should we shoot him? We'd lose the darts." And I believe then ASCII said, "No, it's fine. Let's not worry about it. He won't cross."
Famous
And
last
at the
words.
moment he said, "He won't cross," I just pitch forward straight off of this bank, drop into the water, go slamming across, because this was right after we had unlocked sprinting as well. It had been all slow zombies up until then. Get across, and just as I'm coming out of the water, Rob goes to shoot me and has a blaster jam.
Oh.
And so I come flailing, screaming up out of the water, just dripping, spraying water everywhere. Rob has to go running back down the trail. He sees a bunch of other people who also go running because they hear screaming and see Rob coming, panicking their direction. burst out onto the field, immediately get mowed down. But, oh, the look of sheer terror was so worth getting absolutely drenched over.
I think Rob told that story later in a horrified tone, so I think I think that was how to zombie, an example of how to zombie.
It went really well. I was quite pleased with myself. I had been being derp zombie as a whole, and it was really entertaining, just being a roleplay zombie, not trying to be effective like you do in HVZ. Because in HVZ, the judge of how good a zombie are is how many kills you get. And it was fun to just, how good a zombie are you? Well, how terrifying are you? How much do you stumble about and look like you're rotting?
So on that same note, I was zombieing around, and I'm coming up upon one of the main bridges. It's the bridge with the wall. I'm going to call it the wall bridge. So we're coming up on so I'm coming up on the wall bridge, and I don't want to cross because I just don't want to get super engaged and like look like I'm getting out of RP mode to go grab this piece of paracord so I can walk across it safely. So I'm like, how do I stick around here just to sort of look intimidating? And I see a tree. And in my confusion while I was trying to figure out what to do, I got my neck caught on the branch. And at that moment I was like, bingo, there we go. And I'm sitting there and it looks like I can't understand that there's this branch holding my neck back, and I'm just sort of like sitting there at the end of this bridge, flailing my arms wildly, like looking like I'm getting more and more frustrated. And then some humans come up behind me, and there's some humans across the bridge that are like trying to see if they want to engage me. And then they're like, he's leaving us alone. We'll leave him alone. Or they were either that like that, or they just didn't want to fuck across the bridge. And then some humans came up behind me, and I went after those guys.
It was interesting how much of a border that river was. I thought that people would go across the bridges a lot more, but once they realized it was not as protected as the human side of the river, it seemed like it was kind of, the river was no man's land, and there were really two definitive sides to it.
And I think that's the feeling that I really enjoyed, because I know we really had that feeling the very first time we did this, but the second time there really wasn't that border, and I really enjoyed that we were able to bring that back, that if you're going into a foray into the woods, you were stepping out of your safety zone and into what I like to call the zone.
We haven't really touched on Mr. Jingles, have we?
Oh, no.
We should do Mr. Jingles.
Right, so Mr. Jingles was a mission that had popped up pretty early in the day, because Kira Betteridge went out in like what appeared to be little kids' clothing. She did herself up with pigtails and shit, and said that a shade took her family, or killed her family and took her cat, and kept the collar of the cat as a souvenir. And so she put that out there to the player base at about like 2 or 3 hours into the game, and then the mission cannot culminate until sunrise at earliest of the next day. And the opportunity to get the collar back from Mr. Jingles is between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. during the night. So when I went out as Mr. Jingles, it was me, Stu, and Trevor just kind of creeping around in some bushes, and I would periodically jingle the collar on my wrist. It had a little jingle bell on it. I would periodically jingle it, and then we'd just kind of go fuck off somewhere else. And so we ran around for we didn't run around for very long. And we decided to hunker down in some bushes right by the river. And conveniently for us, a group of like 8 or 10 Mavericks just kind of walks around the corner and starts walking by us. And I just could not resist the temptation to shake my wrist. So I did. And everyone stopped and they were like, wait, what was that? Was that a bell? Did you guys hear a bell? And so they started investigating a little bit, and as soon as a light hit me, I turned on my lamps and I shouted, "Meow, motherfucker!" and ran out of the bushes and started smacking people until they downed me. And then they took my jingle bell, and it was great. Like, had I not jingled the bell and just waited a while, I could have probably had a little more fun with yanking people around. But at the same time, it was cool.
I'm kind of
No
imagining
regrets.
I'm kind of imagining that, like, you know how in video games or Assassin's Creed or something, if you make a noise, like the guards around you will like become slightly hostile and start like rustling through shit.
Yeah, what was that noise?
What was that? Like, what's in this direction?
Oh,
I kind
it
of
was
imagine,
exactly like that.
I just have this picture of like the Mavericks, like all like suddenly being alerted to a something and then foraging around until "Meow, motherfucker" comes out of the bushes.
The only way it could have been more like that if little exclamation points had appeared above their head.
Or like in Skyrim, if the little eye icon gradually opens up more and more and more.
So I don't know. I didn't play as Shade as much as most people, as most of the other Shades. I did it for like the big group things, but most of the rest of the time I was a zombie, and God, that was exhausting. But I did a lot of damage, and also Corey and I fucking did some work as zombie, especially around like I don't know, it was like 8 or 9 in the evening, and it was just us, but we managed to like down a few players, just us, and we had silent and run, and we were being sneaky or not sneaky, but because we couldn't like hide with silent, but we were being, I guess, stealthy is a better word.
So it's the next morning, and we're just going, you know what? Let's go shake things up a bit and make everybody kind of pucker up. So we are in the glade, and we see this place called Glowstick Hill. And up at the top of Glowstick Hill is this perfect hiding spot. Like, if everyone is absolutely prone at that spot, nobody sees them until you actually are on top of it. So we're like, okay, well, let's go see if there's anybody up there. We start climbing it, and then we all of a sudden see people like moving about, and they see us. So we go. So I'm not sure if we were already red or if we. Either way, we're going red, and we start going up this hill. They're like, "Oh crap, Shades are coming after us." We get up to the top of the first, come up to this first steep area, and at the top of that steep part, there's trees and blackberry bushes and one narrow pathway, which is this gauntlet that everybody is covering at the very top. And so they're like, "Oh, well, I don't, I'm sitting there going, well, I don't know exactly what to do." And then I notice, oh yeah, I have long sleeve, I have pants, camouflage pants. And I say, you know what? Fuck these bushes. And I just start climbing through these bushes. I come in, open up a flank, start pouring down fire. Everybody, they sort of split up into two groups. There's this one main group which has Hallie, our original target. We're going to go for her so that she couldn't revive people. And her group of I think it was 9 people over there. And they go off to the right where there's this group of 5. Was that 5 people, Dylan?
Yeah, it was 5-ish or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And they're separated out. And sort of like siege tactics, they're trapped in a corner. They go down, and they have a 5-minute bleed out time. So what we do is Hallie and those guys go about maybe 50 yards back. We're standing just staring at them silently as their friends bleed out for 5 minutes.
We were basically standing on top of their bleeding out friends saying, "Come at us, bro," and I expected them to do it.
I actually did too. And then they all die, and they kind of go, "Oh well, we're gonna go fuck off." And then we all turn towards Hallie's group, and Dylan says, "We just want Hallie." And after a little bit of deliberation, Hallie walks across the empty space between us, and then goes with us, and then we murk her when we get back to base.
Another thing I didn't expect to happen. I didn't think they were going to give her up.
Neither did I.
We were wrong about everything going into engagements, weren't we?
I guess, but that was still a funny-ass story.
Yeah. There was a bit of push and shove going up that hill, too, because that hill's a bitch to climb, especially if you're getting shot at.
That hill is an absolute bitch to climb.
It is. I mean, even under normal conditions, it's rough. It's all loose material, and it's like there's some big rocks and some dirt, so you're worried about pulling down a sheet of concrete on your shins, or
Yeah, that hill is pretty fun. I've had a couple of stories of that.
another one I'm realizing that we haven't told in its entirety, if we wanted to, was our attempted capture of, I'm sorry to say, I don't know which Anderson.
Did he have a giant sword?
Yes! Yes,
That's
he did. I
Alex.
remember very well because he hit me very hard in the plums with it just before then.
The plums with it. Yeah, he was on the outskirts of that little firefight, and we tried to get him up.
He was, and I thought that the two of us did. I mean, there was some kind of questions that came out of that, but honestly, on the whole, I thought that went so well because, as I recall, you stood him up, and I was still vaguely upright at that point. I think that you had him handcuffed, like a knife over his throat and a gun over his shoulder.
Yeah, I actually didn't get a chance to handcuff him. I just said, don't do anything stupid or I'm going to shoot you, because he only had one hit point. And I had my left, elbow around his neck and my alpha trooper over his right shoulder that I could still move him and chamber around. And then I guess I didn't know you were behind me. I didn't know who it was. But
It was me, and I thought it worked quite well because I was going over the opposite shoulder with the rapid strike because you were going over the right shoulder because you're right-handed.
So when the humans came up to try to stop us, did he grab your blaster as well?
Yes, he actually did manage to get them both, which is part of the reason I wasn't upset about it. That was really impressive on his part.
He was I saw his hand creeping, and I smacked his hand like, don't touch me, like I see you going for the blaster. And then once his people got close, he basically just went like dead weight sack of potatoes and grabbed both our blasters, which I think got him shot in the process too. But you and I got absolutely wasted.
Oh, just destroyed. Yeah.
And then he got revived and ran away.
And we didn't.
I forgot. And we didn't. I forgot about that though. That was an interesting heat of the moment thing. And I totally don't have any qualms about the on the fly not understanding what we're trying to do. It was dark. There were lights everywhere. We were trying to be as fast as we could.
But I thought that went together quite well because there was sort of like a little, one of the nonverbal communications where you had him and kind of, as I recall, looked over at me, and I could just kind of see the, oh god, I've got this for the moment, but if anything changes, I don't. I need help. And
that was the holy shit, this is happening, I need help face.
Yeah, and it was great because I was right there, and it did work out. I mean, briefly, but it was a cool little moment.
So I'll say some of the people out there being troopers going for the entire event. I think one of the things I remember is Kira dislocating a finger, and in the middle of the field, she's like, I should probably fix this, and just pop back in.
Oh god, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. She was still having problems with it when we got to Denny's after all was said and done, but yeah, dislocated it in the field and was like, oh, that's not good. Pop.
Damn, well, that counts as going hard.
Right? I think this looks funny.
And that's kind of the note I was going to go for. And Ian, I think I heard you say this too. This year was probably the best year of 3 years that we've had of people not cheating, people not being dicks, people not being bad sports, people not sleeping outside of boundaries. And this was a relatively new crowd numbers-wise. We had a whole bunch of people that hadn't done this before, and I thought, just as someone who's done this a whole lot and who was trying to progress the story and make it fun for everyone, I really appreciated the fact that all of our players seemed to be playing by the rules and seemed to be trooping through all of it, even when it was cold at 7 a.m.
I definitely agree. I think the big part for that was this year, the humans were given a reason to work together.
Yeah.
And it didn't become a contest between the teams, which is what the last 2 years have been. This year, I definitely think was a LARP.
Yeah, great description that I heard applied to it. Wasn't specifically applied to these LARPs, but it definitely fits. Was they're the first-person shooters of LARPs. There's not a lot of role play. I mean, you can do it, but yeah, especially in the past, it's really been a thing of just kind of go out and shoot and have enough character that you can't need to role play.
I was very proud of how things went. I was definitely excited to see how much fun that all the players were having, and I mean, every moment was worth it. I'm very sorry that a few players got hurt, but I guess, with how hard people were going, then that was to be expected.
I mean, I got hit the hardest I've ever been hit in my life, with at least a melee weapon at the LARP, but at the same time, that was one occurrence out of how many strikes that happened to me and other zombies the whole night. Like, I don't blame it on that person at all. It was dark, there was adrenaline, these things happen, I signed up for it, whatever.
And people were quick to change their actions too, because I got hit once really good in the back of the leg, and then throughout the entire rest of the LARP, he checked with me to make sure he wasn't hitting too hard.
Yeah, Trevor, when you and I tried to kidnap Alex, I don't know if you heard him, but when he got revived and they sorted their shit out, he kind of ran over and like leaned down and was like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's all good." He's like, "Sweet, that was awesome. Thanks for the roleplay, dude," and then ran away. And I just think that kind of that lighthearted approach to a potentially infuriating situation is the way to go, and I'm appreciative that most of our player base seemed to have that state of mind.
Yeah, people did really well with that this game, which, as everyone has said, makes everything so much more enjoyable for everyone. I mean, for the staff too, because it's just that much less unpleasantness that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with Ian. The role playing was spot on this time around. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing the short-lived but memorable Private First Class Reginald,
Yeah.
who got brutally murdered by Shades and then went on to become a Shade.
I
that was
enjoyed
almost
actually
awful.
just being a part of the story and the NPCs and not having to actually worry about anything and making the story for other people, because I've been a part of, the experience for a couple of years already.
That was the biggest thing for me, Jake, was participating from the other side of it, like making the story instead of participating in, because this was probably the most fun that I've had at one of our 24-hour events, and that was probably because I enjoy it from the end that I participated on.
Yeah, and I mean, something that I think, makes LARPs even more memorable is, like, all LARPs have, like, a main plot and everything, and main storyline, but it's kind of like all those little flavorful things that you have in between that just makes it all that much more better. It can sometimes even surpass the main storyline in some senses, just really fleshing it out to the best of your abilities.
Well, we are running up on time here. It's not necessarily applicable to this one, but tradition. Any voiced opinions are only the opinions of those voicing them. All advice given here is to be taken with a grain of salt and if ever applied, only applied where applicable. Thank you for listening to the Black and White Podcast number 8. Everybody say bye.
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 1, 2, 3. Fuck off!
Fuck off!
Fuck off.